division of CCS Global Tech, a 22-year-old full-service IT consulting firm. We offer a wide range of innovative technology solutions. My name is Kajal Shalat, and I've been in the education and professional training sector for the last 9 years, and your co-host for today's very important training. We'll be running a live Q&A at the end of the webinar. So we have enabled our Ask a Question feature, and it's on the bottom of your screen. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, just pop them in there, and we'll address it at the end. Today, we have a well-respected cybersecurity professional and instructor who has extensive experience in cybersecurity consulting services for both private and Department of Defense sectors. And now for our presenter, Alphonso Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like she said, my name's Alphonso Brown. I've been in the cybersecurity world for probably the past 10 years, specifically DoD for the last 5. One thing that I have done for quite some time, I've been involved with IT since I guess if you guys remember back in the day, the TRS-80, when Radio Shack used to sell computers. So I've been raised around computers most of my life, and this came on as a career for me after college, and I built my IT background along with my brother and my father. All of us were involved in IT, and I've been working strictly DoD out here in California for about the past 7 years here. And it's a great field to be in, and it's a great time to be in IT, especially with the advent of COVID-19. And there's been a lot of challenges for individuals out there to continue business as usual. And so we have what we call cybersecurity awareness, which is something that's become paramount for organizations. The secret to improving your cybersecurity awareness, and the reason for that topic is specifically because of how we're doing business today. Many companies have been doing remote login, remote working for a long time, but not at this pace. Companies have had to take advantage of those services that are out there, such as Teams from Microsoft, and we're currently utilizing Zoom. There's other applications that you can use as well, but these are part of everyday life now, and we need to be aware of those vulnerabilities that we open up our organizations to. So that's why it's a very worthy topic to be discussed today. What I want to go into, just to show you the topics we'll be covering, is what is cybersecurity awareness? Why cybersecurity is important, types of attacks that organizations are susceptible to, how to increase cybersecurity awareness, and how organizations can recover from an attack if it were to happen. So that is very important as well. And then we'll go in our summary. What is cybersecurity awareness? If you want a definition, it's not just knowledge. Security awareness is knowledge combined with attitudes and behaviors that serve to protect our information assets. Being cybersecurity aware means that you understand, you and your organization understand what the threats are that could affect your day-to-day business, and you take the right steps to prevent them. In order to do that, there has to be a culture in place. The organization has to build a culture of awareness from day one. If it hasn't been implemented, it's something that's very necessary, and especially in this COVID-19 era that we're living in. When I say culture, it's something that is ingrained, that becomes a normal part of our everyday lives, so that it's not something that one must think of or remember. It's just something that comes naturally because that training or the environment, the culture of that organization is such that it becomes part of their everyday work life. And not only is it important that the culture is built around cybersecurity awareness, but in order to maintain compliance with a lot of the requirements that are governmental or industry related, that we have to make sure that our systems are cyber secure, and our data, which is the most important part of any infrastructure for any IT system, is its data, the protection of that data. And so if that data were to be leaked out, or someone were to hack into the system and gain access to that information, then the impact to the organization could be detrimental. Now, depending upon the size of the organization, the larger organizations could handle that and can absorb that kind of hit to their reputation. However, smaller mom and pop shops or medium-sized companies that were impacted by a cybersecurity breach, whether it's information stolen from their customers, or if it's any type of sensitive data about their sales, and or anything that's sensitive that could be stolen, could be adversely, could cause some serious damage to the organization. So that type of damage is hard to repair your reputation and not lose your customer base. And for smaller companies and smaller mom and pop shops, that could cause you to have to shutter your doors and lose your customer base. So it's very important that that culture of cybersecurity, no matter what size the organization, is created. Why cybersecurity is important, and I know I've touched on this already, but the COVID-19 has caused a lot of organizations to change the way they do business. Not only is it impacting infrastructure, or not only is it bringing additional vulnerabilities, but they're realizing, and I think it's because of this culture of working remote and telecommuting, companies are realizing the impact that these vulnerabilities could have on their systems. Your bandwidth is only so wide, and so companies have had to compensate for those things, that to allow all of their employees to be able to log in remotely. So that's a lot of bandwidth that gets taken up. Systems weren't previously built for that before. So not only does it cause them to change policy so that their individuals can log in, but they have to also take into account the vulnerabilities. They have to take into account the infrastructure itself that will allow their employees to dial in securely. So some organizations have to actually reinvent themselves so that their network and their the way they do business would compensate and allow them to continue to do business. So cybersecurity, as far as increased government regulation, has become a very serious thing. Not only for companies that do day-to-day business, because you may have to already be, if you're a medical organization, you already had to be compliant with HIPAA, or if you were a financial or insurance organization, you had to already remain compliant with Sarbanes-Oxley or the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act. So those things are already there. Those requirements were already there. But with your organization having to have your employees work remotely, those things are even more important, because those vulnerabilities could cause you to no longer be compliant with those regulations. So organizations such as, I don't know if you heard in the news lately, but Twitter decided to permanently allow their employees to work from home. They totally changed the way they do business. And not only has that changed their outlook on how employee satisfaction, how productivity, because believe it or not, statistically, employees are more productive when working remotely from home than when in the office. And it's amazing, but that is a fact. You also have another organization, not only Twitter, but you had Nationwide Insurance that moved. They had 27,000 workers working from home. They moved to about 27,000. And they are also considering having that as a permanent part of the way that they do business, which would not only bring about more employee satisfaction, because as you know, it's working from home allows you to have more time for your family. If you have young kids, although you do have to get the work done, you don't have to have the expense of having daycare and things of that nature. So it allows you to to actually retain your workers longer. So there's a lot of things that come into play when you're talking about allowing remote work. Not only affects your cybersecurity as a whole, but it affects the way that you do business, and it reduces your footprint as far as on-site. And so a lot of the things that you had before that were required, such as desks with endpoints with all your workstations for your employees to work, now they're working from home and utilizing laptops or workstations in their home, that employees or organizations are providing compensation for them to create their office at home. I think that was one of the biggest things, or biggest factors, was that some employees didn't have a work environment at home or a location that they could work comfortably from. So they actually created a benefit that allowed them to do so. So by reducing their footprint, they're seeing the cost savings, so that that money can be directed to other things. So government regulation, although it has increased regarding of what you have to do as far as keeping your data and information secure, specifically to Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, Graham-Leach-Bailey, even the payment card industry data security standard, or for short PCI DSS, you have to make sure that your employees are able to do that. So a lot of that training and a lot of that information comes directly from your IT department and your IT managers. And for them to understand what is required as far as keeping that government regulation, the remote work, telecommunication, even where employees are utilizing their own systems or their own, because they are logging onto the same networks, the Internet of Things. So there's a lot of things that are on their networks, but they're utilizing these networks to log in remotely into your network, into the organization. So the IT staff who's working at these organizations have to understand what is required to keep that data secure. And so there's courses and certifications that these guys have to take that actually will increase their knowledge, such as the CompTIA courses, or EC Council, and even the ISC Squared, CISSP, which I took a few years back, which is a very difficult course, but is very worthy, because you learn those things that are required, whether it's government regulation or specific to how information should be encrypted. All that information is relevant, because those courses offer that training that allows your employees to have that necessary expertise to protect your data. So it's important that you provide those courses for them to take. And there's a lot of opportunities for them to take those courses at CCS Learning Academy, because those are things that we specialize in. The organization's reputation, that goes without saying. If you are breached, if you look back a few years ago where Target was targeted and found out they had malware on their POS system for months. They couldn't even tell how long it had been embedded in their system. But you had hundreds of thousands of customers' information that had been sent from their POS system to an offsite database, where all that information ended up on the dark web. So when you have things like that happen and your information is stolen, it can have a detrimental impact to your organization's reputation. Target, however, is a large organization, and they were able to weather that storm. But if that was smaller organizations, small mom and pops organizations that I have worked for and represented, then those organizations couldn't have handled that type of impact to their reputation. So it's very important that that protection is in place, that your staff understands what's required, and that education, those certifications and those courses that are offered, that they take those so that they have the background and the expertise to protect that data. Now, your organization is susceptible to multiple types of attacks, and the types of attacks they are susceptible to, here's just a few, but I do want to discuss social engineering. Social engineering is probably the least thought of type of attack that's out there, because we have conversations all the time. We're talking to folks. You could be anywhere at your local watering hole. You could be out at the shopping malls, anywhere. But understand that individuals, just in a normal conversation, could be looking for information that could help them to attack your organization. Asking about your family, your kids, your dogs, the names of those. Because a lot of times we utilize those in our passwords and things of that nature. They may ask you where you work, what do you do, things like that. What department? There's a lot of things that come out in normal course of conversation that hackers and their information can get to just by normal conversation. So you have to be really careful when you're out and about, when you're engaging on telephone conversations, things of that nature, because somebody will take advantage of that if they get the opportunity. Along with social engineering, you have phishing. Phishing is simply when they're sending stuff in and hoping that you're going to bite. They're trying to gain information from you and get information that you may not seem as very important, but it may help them in their plan of attack. You may give benign information this time, but that information that's actually combined with other information could be enough that they could attack your network. It's enough that they can figure out who does what within your organization, figure out who the big players are, or things of that nature, who your supervisor, who the president, CIO. And if they can gain that type of information, then instead of just phishing, they can start whaling. Whaling is when you're going after those who are in charge, those who carry a lot of clout. And if they can gain access to them, gain access, or even if they're able to get their information so that they can log in under their information, then they could have a lot more information at their disposal. So you have to be really careful about phishing attacks. Malware email attacks. Malware email. The thing about that is that could come in any form. All they are trying to get you to do is to click on a link or a picture to something that they're trying to entice you through any means. And those means could include, if you're a dog lover, they could send you an email advertising a new type of dog food, or they could advertise a new collar that's even better for them, that prevents fleas and things of that nature. They could be anything, and it could be embedded with malware. And once you click on that link or click on that picture, you have opened up your organization to attack, because it could embed, you can spiral into a worm and start pulling data. There's a lot of attacks that could actually begin from a single click in a malware email. And so when you receive things like that in your work email, even at home as well, but that's not as detrimental as your information at work, because that's your livelihood. And if something were to happen as far as you opening up your organization to attack, it could cause a catastrophic event within your organization, loss of data, loss of access, because it could be ransomware could be opened up. I mean, there's so many things that could occur that we must be aware of when we're dealing with email. If it's something that you don't recognize or something that you question, the organization must be notified or contact your IT, someone that could take a look at it, or just delete it. Just do not click on things that you don't recognize, something you didn't request. So things like that should not be coming to your work email, and that way you can help to protect your organization. Fileless attacks. And fileless attacks are very dangerous because they don't carry, it doesn't install, there's no program. And what it does it links to benign applications or processes that are normal to how your computer works. So it's not recognizable as something that's going to stand out. It's not going to say malware 202 or something like that. You're not going to be able to recognize it because it's going to look benign. It's going to just blend right into your processes that your computer normally does, and it's going to be very difficult to detect. So you have to be very careful when you're, especially in email, so that you don't have a fileless attack occur in your organization. Now, the largest, believe it or not, when it comes to organizations being attacked, it's employee error which causes the most damage. It's not that some bad actors out there trying to hack into the organization and cause damage to it, trying to damage the reputation beyond repair. But simple things like employee error, it's people doing things that it was a mistake. They didn't mean to. And employee errors are the largest cause of data loss. So to combat employee errors, there's a very simple secret. There's a very simple secret to all of these things. And that is simply training. So we'll get all into that, but there's so many opportunities out there. Organizations should have their programs, their cybersecurity awareness programs, or they should have external third-party organizations come in, and just to make sure that culture of cybersecurity awareness is created. That is what's going to keep your organization from becoming susceptible to attacks like these. Now, because the percentage of attacks that occur because somebody's sitting out in some hut in the dark, typing away, trying to access your data in your network, that's not typically how it happens. Normal, everyday use, employee errors is the #1 cause of data loss. So training is how you improve data loss, as how you improve your organization's protection of its information. As you see, the graphics here basically tell you, I don't know if you guys have heard defense in depth. Defense in depth starts pretty much, it's like a bullseye, but it starts here in the red circle where your confidential assets are. That's where all your information and your data that you're trying to keep secure. And then it goes out from there. So here it goes, your confidential assets to the user, because your user is the closest one to that information. To the endpoints, which is their PCs, goes out to your network and your systems, to your perimeter, to the private public cloud. At different levels, there's different requirements of protection. And like I said before, your user, which is closest to your confidential assets, that is where you want to make sure that training is implemented. So your user is going to, cybersecurity awareness is paramount, that you have that process in place. And then you have your endpoints in your network systems and your perimeter. That is going to be your IT folks, your IT departments. That is where you're going to have folks that you want to make sure is getting certified, getting those courses, getting that expertise, so they'll continue to grow in knowledge and be able to protect your organization. But the most important one is that user, because it doesn't matter how good your IT folks are at guarding your perimeter, keeping your network and systems vulnerabilities locked down, or your endpoint secure. None of that's going to matter if your user is not trained, your user who's closest to your information. So you have to be careful and train. You see where 90% of email attacks were malware-less and 10% are malware. So, and all these are different types of email attacks: impersonation, CEO fraud, whaling, spear phishing, credential harvesting. All these things are attacks that occur at the user level, not at the network, at the user himself. So you have to make sure that the user is trained. Okay, I think I beat that horse enough. All right, how do you increase your cybersecurity awareness? Speak plainly in layman's terms. yes, we can get very technical and show how educated we are and show how much IT knowledge we have when we're talking to the masses in the organization. But if you're not talking in a language that they can understand, and you know, there's a lot of ways to describe malware, but when you explain it plainly and just say it is a attack on the system where it will be propagated and okay, let me back up. It will actually cause data loss to your organization. So just speak plainly. It's an attack on the network that causes data loss, that could cause loss of reputation. I mean, you don't have to go into the details of how malware is created and what it specifically does, but you have to make sure that your users understand that malware is bad, that we don't want that on our network. And in these training, when you're trying to educate your users, make sure whatever the method is, whether it's how you have an instructor in front of a classroom or if it's online, there's a lot of computer-based training that's out there. There's quite a few courses that are offered at CCS Learning Academy where it's in person or computer-based training. All of it is valuable. So as long as it's engaging, it doesn't matter if it's in person, online. What matters is that it's engaging, it holds the user's attention, and that it will help the user to retain that information that's taught. That is what's vital. So you speak plainly in layman's terms and engage engaging training methods. That's very important. Once the training is completed, or whether it's you have multiple levels of training that's offered, or they have multiple different CBTs that can be taken, or computer-based training that can be taken, make sure it's quantifiable. You want to be able to say, okay, they came in at this point and now they are here. You want to be able to train your individuals and your users so that it builds upon one another. There's CompTIA, for example, starts out with A+. A+ is the most basic computer training you can take, because what you're learning is how a computer works, what's inside of a computer, things of that nature. That is your basic, and it goes all the way through. CompTIA takes you all the way through from A+ certification all the way through to your cybersecurity training, your CASP. So that's where you go from the guts of the computer, how it works, how it operates, all the way to how you secure a network, how you implement cybersecurity controls, how you do those things that will protect that data from breaches from outside the network as well as inside. So make sure that you have quantifiable training that will take you from step 1 through step 10. And also keep track of that. And also the purpose of it is so that if something were to happen, an individual causes a breach or does something that causes any type of outage, or what you want to do from that point is be able to say, okay, this individual had training up until this point, so we had not yet gotten them to this level, so it's understandable why that happened. However, if an individual had the training that would prevent that type of attack from happening, then that individual can be held accountable for his actions. He's been trained. He should have known better. And then, although you'd have to have him retrained, and then you could actually have built in different levels of responsibility. So I don't want to say punish see the posters around, or there's emails that come out, there's continuous training that comes out. Those are the things that we need to do for cybersecurity awareness as well. Constant and persistent reinforcement of that culture. That's what's going to build it. That is what's going to have your employees doing cybersecurity second nature. They're not going to have to try to remember to do something. It's going to become natural, and they'll naturally do it. So persistent reinforcement is very vital to any organization. Can everyone still hear me?
Alphonso, we
Okay.
can hear you fine. Can you show your screen? It cut out just a little bit, but I think we're right on track. So just
Okay.
share your screen and we should be all good to go. Thanks.
Okay. Here we are. Okay. I knew something happened. I saw the Zoom blink, and I'm like, whoa. Okay. Are we good? There we are.
We are good. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I was speaking about persistent reinforcement for your users. Vital. You see here, I just wanted to show this bar graph that shows the types of insiders considered as a company's biggest risk, and it's your employees. Your number one issue could be your employees, and then your privileged IT users and admins. Now, and it goes down all the way towards your customers, clients, and then none other would be people outside the organization trying to gain access. But your number one is always your employees. And so that's why it's so vital that you have a cybersecurity awareness program that's constantly and persistently and reinforced to your users. Very important. Now, if something were to happen, because we're not perfect, it's not a perfect world, things can occur. Organizations have to be setting themselves up for success. Not only in case of an attack, but it should be a normal way of doing business, and to keep or to back up your business data. I mean, you should make full backups periodically. Maybe not daily. And this all is dependent upon the type of organization, the type of business you're in. If you're doing financial transactions heavily, then yes, that is something that should be backed up on a very often in case something were to occur and you were to lose any data on your operational network. Then you should be able to go to your backups and fully restore within no time at all. But depending upon your requirements, because it does depend on the framework or the governmental regulations, because some of those are more strict than others. As far as transactional backups, your Sarbanes-Oxley and your Graham-Litch-Biley Act, those things having to do with finances and insurance, yes, they're required. They're much more stringent when it comes to backing up data, because not only is it having to do with customer data itself, but it has to do with financial transactions, which is vital that those are protected. And then even though you do full backups, there should be incremental backups that are in between. So after a full backup is completed and you have incremental backups that are in between, if something were to happen, you can go to your last incremental backup and you install your full backup, and then install that incremental backup, and your data should be almost complete, back to par. So those things are very important. And again, all depends on the organization, all depends on the type of information and transactions that occur within that organization. But those things are very important when it comes to completing a full backup. And when it comes to your business continuity, there should be a business continuity plan that's in place. And those are things that you also learn from your higher certifications, such as your EC Council certs, your ISICA certs, and from ISC Square and CompTIA. So those higher level certs are where you get educated on how to do those things to make sure those are in place. And your IT folks that are in your IT department should be versed on what's required, especially when it comes to organizations that do financial transactions and maintain those types of things. So that backing up that data, so that if something were to occur, that business continuity plan must be in place so that, it can be, whether, there's a outage that causes your entire operation to go down, and you have a hot site, warm site, or a cold site somewhere else that could be brought online. And just to explain a little bit about hot site, warm site, cold site. A hot site, can be immediate turnover to that next site. So if you're in California and you have a hot site, let's just say in Philadelphia, so it's a totally different area. So if there's a weather issue, there's an earthquake, the entire building collapses and your network is completely down. All your servers are crushed. Your servers that are out in Philadelphia can immediately take over and maintain the business operations. And that's a hot site. Now, those are the most expensive to keep up and running because, one, that data has to be maintained. That data has to be fully up to date with what's at the operational site. A warm site is just that. It doesn't, you could have that up within 24 to 48 hours. And the information may not be fully up to date, but it could rapidly become up to date from your backups. So you have to update the system, but as far as your data, but that could be brought up and have operations back up and running within, 24 to 48 hours. And your cold site is just that. It's a site that you have. It's the least expensive because you are not actively maintaining it. You have it available, but you're not actively maintaining it. And so if you ever had to use your cold site, and if your business operations, your continuity plan does not require you to be immediately back up in business or back up within 48 hours, then you can use your cold site and you could actually take your data, you update everything on your systems there. You may have to do some patching and things of that nature, but you can be up within a week or so. So that's a cold site. So it's very important that you have that backup, those backups of all your data, so that your business continuity plan, regardless of how quickly you have to be back up and running, that's available. And other ways that you can also try to compensate for any recovery, you can actually share the risk. You guys know all about risk with insurance and your car, your house payment, or there's also cybersecurity insurance for your data. So if you consider cybersecurity insurance for increased recovery capability. So in case that happens, and then you have to actually recreate data, recreate networks and things of that nature, you have cybersecurity insurance that will help you to become whole again. So that is also an option as far as business continuity to recover from an attack that could have happened. And then you also can, you have to do what is called continuous monitoring. And I know I pulled that from RMF training, but continuous monitoring of all of your processes. So you have to continually assess and improve your procedures and technologies, meaning that things happen, technology advances quickly. Just looking in within my lifetime, from the Tandy 1000, the TRS-80, those Radio Shack computers to what we have today, it's amazing that those little things that are in each one of your pockets, those cell phones, are more powerful than the computers we used back then. So I have a much more processing power and speed than the desktop computers or even the mainframes that were used back in the 80s. So not to date myself or anything, but it's amazing how quickly technology has advanced. So you have to continually assess and improve your procedures and your technologies. Now, Why procedures, you ask? Why should I have to continually improve those? Because things happen. Your employees, it's one thing to sit in a room with IT experts and cybersecurity experts and say, this is what we need to do. But when you take it out to your users, to your organization, and they actually, you put those policies and procedures in place, they may not fit perfectly. There may have to be some changes, some updates because of the way that we do business. Prime example, COVID-19 has changed the way that we do business. And so we have to be flexible when it comes to changing our processes and our procedures. So a lot of organizations have gone back to the drawing board, and they've actually updated their procedures so that it allows for their employees to gainfully work from home. And it was an option that was always there, but most organizations wanted you on site. So the way that we do business has changed, and so much your procedures and your technologies. And very important, very vital. And in summary, I think that cybersecurity awareness is, as a whole, it's something that everyone in the organization has to take part in. It has to come from the CEO, from the C-suite, all the way down to the labs or IT and users and endpoints. Everyone has to be involved in order to create that culture around cybersecurity awareness. It is vital, especially in this day and age where a lot of us are no longer, we're not working on site, on premise. And so it's very easy for us to get a little lackadaisical when it comes to cybersecurity. But with the updated processes and procedures, and with the constant, with the company constantly reinvigorating their employees and continuously reminding them of those things that are required, constantly updating their training, those things will help that organization to create that culture of cybersecurity awareness that is needed. With that education, it will make aware your employees of how and where your organization is vulnerable. That training is what will cause them to know, wait a minute, I shouldn't do that because this will cause my organization to be open to vulnerabilities, open to attack. And so having an understanding of how your organization could become vulnerable, the things that we do in our daily work lives that could cause your organization to become vulnerable is very important. And with the constant training, with the constant explanation of what vulnerabilities are and how those things could happen, that culture would grow and your organization would be more secure. You have to educate. Education is key. Education is the secret to cybersecurity awareness. And education for your employees should be something that is not a benefit, but a norm. That is something that should be required. Educating your employees on cybersecurity, there's different ways of doing it, like we've discussed before. Online learning, in-person learning, webinars. I know that CCS Learning Academy has done a lot to help organizations provide that training for their workforce. Whether it's specifically in a certain certification or something a little more broad, such as cybersecurity. CCS Learning Academy has embraced what is required for organizations to become more cybersecurity aware and to get that training available to you. So it's vital that is provided to your workforce. And even with all the education, with everything else that's provided for your users, there's going to be times when things happen. It's just the way that life works. Things, if you think it, you can plan for it. You can throw every roadblock up that you can to prevent things from happening, but somehow life finds a way. There's extra bonus points if you can remember what movie that came from. But you have to have a data recovery strategy in order to make sure that your organization could get back to business, could be operational and not regardless of what does happen, that you're operational and that you can continue to do business and to do that which you were designed to do. So it is paramount that they have a business continuity plan in place. And again, to understand and to learn what is required to do that, training is required. So make sure that your employees are receiving or you are receiving that education that you need to make sure that you keep your organization secure. And in turn, those things you learn from your organization will help you to keep your family secure as well. So cybersecurity is not just a work thing, it is a life thing. So you have to make sure that that education is not only in place for your users and your employees, but in turn, they can take that knowledge home and teach their kids and make sure that their kids are staying safe as well, because there's a lot of craziness out there, and there's a lot of things if you can click on it and your information from home could be stolen just as well. So make sure that all that training is put to good use and you have an environment that will continue to train and to get that reinforcement for your employees. So just make sure that that training is available, and that if you need anything outside of what you currently have in your organization, there are third-party organizations such as CCS Learning Academy that is ready to step in and help you develop that program. And with that, I will turn it back over.
Perfect. Thanks, Alfonso. So it looks like we have some questions from the audience. So if you guys have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A chat. If we don't get to all the questions, we've got actually quite a few of them and we have limited time. During this webinar, you can certainly send us a follow-up email if we don't get it to it, and then we will be sending out a Q&A of all the questions that we've gathered today, and we'll be emailing that to all registered participants. So we'll go ahead and get into some of the questions. So with an increase of employees working from home, what do you recommend to help them harden their home system? And do you think there would be an increase in war driving in residential areas to access home networks?
Very good question. As far as being at home, to harden your network at home, it starts with your router. Make sure that your SSID, which is the name that is assigned to your router, make sure it's not in the open. Make sure it's actually hidden so that anyone who wanted to try to find your network could not find it. That is the first thing. That is the most important thing, because if it's not accessible and you can't see it, other than those that are locally within your household, then war driving or anything else, your neighbors, if you live in an apartment, your neighbors upstairs and downstairs, they can't see your network, and so therefore they're not going to try to access it. Outside of that, you can also change your router to actually only accept those devices that you log into it. So when you log in, you have what's called a MAC address. You can actually have it so that there's a list, it's a white list, which will only allow those machines, those MAC addresses that you save in your access control list, your ACL. And that way nobody can log in. Even if they found out the name of your router, nobody can log into that except for those devices that you have saved the MAC address for. Do I think there's going to be more war driving because of this? Because more people are working from home? I don't know if it would be more war driving, but I think it would be more strategic. I think if they were able to find out who those folks that have a lot of information that they would want to access, then they would be strategic in where they war drive and try to drive by and see if they can see their network. But I really don't think it's going to cause more war driving to occur. But I do think that you should be careful and make sure that you protect your household by not having that router even appear to anyone's network so they can't even see it. That would help protect you.
Great, thanks. as a follow-up, is there a way that users can check, any external activity that is breaking in or stopping any security protocols?
On their particular network at home? You can. There's multiple. I'm sure your organization has. If you're using a personal laptop, that's one thing, and I'll get into that. But your organization should have given you some kind of like McAfee that you can actually scan your computer. And what it will do, that helps you. It searches for particular signatures for anything that shouldn't be there. So anything that is known. And I say that very strategically because if it's something that's a 0 day, then of course those type of scanners won't pick it up. But anything that is known, that scanner should pick up and should take it away and put it into a sandbox and destroy it and make sure that your system is safe. But if you're not using your organization's endpoint or workstation and you're using your personal, then you should download or have some sort of antivirus or malware, any malware system, something that could scan and protect your network. And not just scan it while you're on it. You want to do a boot scan so that it goes through every process that starts up on your computer. So to go through every single file. And that way you'd be better able to protect yourself and your organization.
Perfect, thanks. So a lot of people either are working from home or now that things are being lifted and people are able to travel or potentially go to Starbucks and do some work. What are your thoughts on connecting to public Wi-Fi, when people are out and about or potentially traveling for work?
That is when you're most vulnerable. If you're out and about, if you're especially at Starbucks, there are folks that are going to be sitting there waiting for you to connect to Wi-Fi. There are a couple things you have to look out for because although you may be at Starbucks and you have Starbucks Wi-Fi, and then you might see another router that says Starbucks Wi-Fi #2, and #2 could be some individual that's there trying to capture your traffic and setting up a connection to try to lure individuals in to connect. So you have to be really careful about where you are and what their actual router name is. On top of that, if you're doing any type of transactions, logging into your bank accounts, anything that you need to have privacy for, I just generally recommend it anyway if you're going to be in that type of situation, is to use a VPN. A VPN will give you a direct connection to, even if it's not your organization's VPN, there's VPN services out there that will protect you, that you'll connect directly to, you will tunnel in and nobody will be able to actually track your transactions and they won't be able to track your traffic or anything because you'll have a direct connection to a server that will protect you. And it's encrypted from end to end so that your data will be secure. Other than that, I wouldn't do it. I would try to make sure that because there's even options on your cell phones where you can do a VPN connection if you're going to do any type of transactional transactions on your phone. So utilize the VPN services that are out there. There's quite a few and they're pretty inexpensive. So take advantage of that so that you're protected.
Great. A follow-up question to that is, will setting up a VPN on a router help hide the IP address and give another level of security?
What will happen, you have your gateway, you have an IP address that is outward facing. But anything beyond that will be protected. Inside the network, your IP address are protected. That's within your network. But you have to have that outside IP address that's outward facing so that people can find you. But if you connect through VPN, you're actually connecting from directly to another location and it's tunneled. So that IP address will not be available. That traffic can't be intercepted and that IP address will not be seen. So connecting through a VPN will protect you from end to end and no one can actually get that information or see your traffic or anything. So within the VPN itself, yes, your IPs will be protected and nobody will be able to see those because of the encryption.
Great. I think we have one more question. And again, if you all want to post your questions in the Q&A, we'll certainly get back to them. And if you did register for this training, we will get back to you and send out all the answers. And you can certainly email training@ccslearningacademy.com and we'll certainly get back to you. So one last question. Zoom has been in the news lately, and there's been a lot of Zoom bombings. We're on Zoom right now, right, for this training and this webinar. Lots of people are using the service. Is Zoom safe? Are there other platforms that are safer? What do you recommend?
I know, and you've heard Zoom in the news when it first started, when all the COVID-19 and all the organizations started using it, because data was bouncing through China servers. They have corrected that. That is no longer happening, and they have taken steps to be as transparent as possible so that the public understands that they have secured their network and secured their application. So Zoom is safe, but the Zoom bombing and things of that nature had been occurring because if you put the information out there for anyone to log in, then yes, anyone can actually do a Zoom bomb. But what has been happening is that the way that you secure it, and I do this for myself when I teach my course at San Diego Community College, is that you send out the invite, and I think you did the same thing here for this course here. You actually have to register, and then once they register, you know who actually is going to attend the class or the course or the webinar. And then when they come in, you actually put them into a waiting room. The waiting room allows you to only allow the individuals in that you are aware that should be there. So if you're holding a meeting or you're holding a class and you know the participants, you can make sure that only those participants are allowed into the room. And there's some version of that for every one of these teams and other ones that offer the service. But the ones I'm most familiar with is Zoom and Teams. You have, I think, Go Meetings. It's another one that's very popular that works well. But all of these have things that allow you to protect your meetings and to keep folks from just arbitrarily jumping into your meeting and doing a Zoom bomb, or so you can protect yourself and your participants.
Perfect. Thanks, Alfonso. So it looks like that's all the questions we have for today. We're running up on our time. So again, we'll certainly follow up on those. So when it comes to upskilling and reskilling, CCS Learning Academy is designed to be your organization's secret weapon. Our network of talented and passionate instructors are ready and waiting to work directly with you, your team, or your entire company. Here are some of our courses that we offer. Alfonso, next slide. And if you are new to IT or if you are a seasoned professional, we offer a range of courses for your needs. If you'd like more information, certainly take a snapshot of our courses offered. You could take a picture or do a screenshot here, and certainly email us and let us know if you're interested in any of these courses. Cybersecurity is such an important avenue. We can help with cybersecurity awareness, or if you're just starting out in getting into security, contact us. We'll be able to help you. I know one of the questions is, do we offer CISSP? We are ISC squared authorized training provider. So yes, we offer that training. So we have lots of different options for you. So contact us and we'll be happy to help. So on behalf of CCS Learning Academy, Mr. Alphonso Brown, we thank you for your attention to this important training and hope you learned how to improve your cybersecurity footprint. Stay safe out there. Thanks.